This puzzle is part of the Puzzle Advent Calendar, a collaboration between many different creators to bring you 24 daily videos showing original puzzles. Make sure to subscribe to the next person in the sequence and check out the project's official Instagram, both linked below. I was inspired to build the Waterfall Cube Extreme after seeing Greg's video about his bizarre barrel. I was fascinated by the puzzle, and when I realized that I can make something very similar by using a 3x3 as a base puzzle, I really wanted to see how it would turn out. This is the rough design for the regular Waterfall Cube, which was my original planned puzzle. This version has the inner 3x3 bandaged into a 3x3x1, and I wasn't really happy with that. So I decided to make all the 3x3 pieces visible on the outside, and make additional cuts on the top and bottom so that the puzzle can make use of the added functionality. Then I finished up the design and sent the pieces to my 3D printer. After about 40 hours of printing, I had all the pieces and was ready to start assembling the Waterfall Cube Extreme. After all the pieces were printed, I took one of these little mini keychain 3x3s and I removed the keychain because obviously that would get in the way. And then what I did is, first I glued on the corners, all 8 of them. You can see the rest here. After the corners, then came the edges, such as this one. And then finally, once all the edges were done, I put in the center, like that. But I can't do that on the second layer, because unlike the first layer where I could just use the other layer as kind of a place to stage things, on the second layer it's a bit more complicated. Why is it more complicated? Simply because of this piece. You can see that this piece bridges different sections of the extensions together. So if I were to simply glue in all of the edges now, then I wouldn't be able to put in this. And if I were to put in this, then I couldn't glue in the center, because this piece always covers the center. But anyway, I'm gonna have to be kind of creative with the assembly part here. And what I've thought of is I can put this piece in, like so, and then glue these pieces on. I don't even have to have that there, I could just move it there. And then what I'm gonna do is just slide this center in through the final edge like that. Just push it in all the way and stick the last edge on, and then I'll be able to assemble the puzzle. So I'll do all that and then I'll get back to you once all of the pieces are on this outer layer. And after gluing all of the pieces on, here's what it looks like. I'm really happy with how it turns. These outer layers turn very, very smoothly. In fact, they're even looser than these inner 3x3 layers, which is kind of weird. Overall, I'm really excited about this puzzle because, honestly, it's the best turning thing I've made in a really long time. And it shapeshifts in such cool ways. Like, look at this. I could turn it like this, and then I can turn this, and look at this. Like, come on, that's cool. I'm excited about it. Oh yeah, and it's gonna shapeshift. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited about this puzzle. You have no idea. But anyway, I'm gonna sand down all of the faces so that the stickers stick to it well. Then I'm gonna take it outside and see how it is. Now that the Waterfall Cube Extreme is done, it actually turns better than I expected it to. The outer layers are quite loose, and I can even turn them quite easily with just one finger. The puzzle doesn't come close to popping though. After last year's X2 was almost unusable due to the pops, I've always made sure to design my puzzle's mechanisms in a way that it's extremely unlikely for pieces to fall out. The inner layers are not nearly as loose as the outer ones, and they turn pretty well because they are directly connected to the 30mm 3x3 on the inside, which on its own is a very good turning puzzle. Finally, the vertical turns are fine, as they are once again extensions of the inner 3x3's axes. The outer layers don't corner cut as much as the inner ones, which can make vertical turns slightly harder to make than you'd expect, but overall it's still a very usable puzzle. To give you a general idea of how the Waterfall Cube Extreme turns, I'm going to do a checkerboard pattern, or at least the closest equivalent I can make. Firstly, I'll do the inner 3 layers. These work exactly the same as the inner layers of a 3x3x5, with the only quirk being that you have to align the outer layers in a way that allows for the vertical turns to be made. This makes it slightly more tedious, but it's really not a major annoyance. Now that the inner 3 layers are checkerboarded, it's time for the outer petals, which I can simply swap using the square 1 algorithm that swaps 2 pairs of edges. Finally, I don't actually believe I can simply swap the symmetrical edges, so this is really as far as the checkerboard pattern goes. Now, I think it's time to shapeshift the puzzle. As on the square 1, if you make a vertical turn with the outer layers being at the same turning plane, you get 2 edges next to each other. However, unlike on a square 1, you can't continue shapeshifting it this way. The geometry simply doesn't allow for it. There is a second way of shapeshifting it, which involves making a 90-degree vertical turn, and then turning either the top or bottom layer. This type of shapeshifting is how you actually get the puzzle to scramble beyond just its colors. So, without further ado, let's scramble the puzzle. First I'll scramble all the inner colors, and then the outer colors, and then finally by shape. Let's see how it looks when it's all scrambled. Okay, we are back inside now, so now we can get to solving the Waterfall Cube Extreme. That's not it. Here it is. But yeah, so just to be clear, this is my first time attempting to solve this puzzle. Now my vague goal right now is to get it back into a cubic-ish shape. It doesn't have to be perfectly cubic, but it should be able to get back to a cube with just a few moves. So obviously I have to use the 3x3 moves to kind of turn these pieces and get them all normal. So the final step is going to be to solve this puzzle as you would solve a waterfall cube. Now I assume that's also a fairly intuitive process, so I'm going to give it a go now. I'm just basically going to try pairing these edges up with these triplets of corners and symmetrical edges. So let's see how that goes. And finally, the puzzle has been finished. Wow, that was quite the solve. I actually really enjoyed it. So here's how I would describe it. The first part, where I had to get it back to a waterfall cube, that was fully intuitive. I thought it was going to be harder than it really was when I saw that the symmetrical edges weren't matched with the corners, but that turned out to be solvable using just one very short sequence of moves. I was initially afraid that the shape-shifting on this puzzle wouldn't be very difficult to solve just because the turns are very limited, but I was pleasantly surprised and I had a nice challenge actually getting it back to a cube. And then after that, it was pretty much exactly as I expected. I can't wait to make the Waterfall Cube Ultimate that has more cuts and is going to be able to get into even more positions. But I am thinking on either holding off on the regular Waterfall Cube or adding some kind of other gimmick to it, because if I were to make it as it is, I wouldn't even consider it a challenge at that point. But anyway, that's all I have to say about the Waterfall Cube Extreme today. Thank you all very much for watching. Make sure to check out the next person in the puzzle advent calendar linked below, and have a great day.